cloud. Okay, so here we are, and just to bring us all in, let's take a moment to gather our molecules and our cells and our energy to be present, so that we experience the information that will be useful for us, for each one of us. And some of you know the power of 3, so I do the sound in 3s. And if you have questions, put it in the chat. I may, during the PowerPoint, say, if you have questions, ask now. But what else? I'm trying to close this chat box. Close. Okay. So I'm going to put up the PowerPoint and start right away. My goal tonight was to really see if we can experience the blessings of abundant wisdom and insight. That's the intent for tonight, to explore and have a good time with these elements of life. So let's see what they are. Okay. I'm going to put this.
Sondra, have you given this presentation before?
I've given versions of it. It always changes. I'm trying to put things, what can I say? I'm trying to
put them in order.
Expand what I've already done before, because I find the elements really interesting. Like I wrote in the email, it's been an obsession for me to understand every aspect of it. So this has bits of courses I've done on the elements. Okay. And to be able to give you enough of a background to understand what it's about. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I've called this a mini course because basically it includes a lot of the information. Some of the information I include in a longer course, but wanted to give you enough information so that it has some usefulness to you. So we'll be looking at, one of the themes is, do the shapes of symbols empower our intuition? That's a question. And then of course we're looking at the elements and the zodiac and how to use those in understanding relationships and ourself and our senses. All of that won't be covered in detail, obviously, tonight. So the reason I do this is, one, to help me know myself better and to help you know yourself better, because I feel the elements are really powerful for us to be able to tune into, to help us get more involved, engaged with our intuition, our inner knowing. And also because I think it's really been fun for me, as well as a challenge, to blend science, art, and metaphysics. So we're opening a new book, a new book into the elements. And most of you know about my beginning, starting as a biochemist, then use the microscope to understand and explore human cells. And then I got into a much more interesting world, which was exploring molecules through the microscope. And then that was opening me to the idea of, which is very popular in biology, that the shape of cells and molecules influence what they can do. Oh, I'm going to go back. This is vitamin A.
Wow.
This is vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is based on pentagons, and it's we can see the primary shape here, and the color of the molecule comes from cobalt that's in the center of the molecule. And this form is used in chlorophyll, it's used in hemoglobin. So nature conserves its energy and form. What works, it will be used over and over with some minor modifications. And here we have adrenaline. So you can see these all have very different shapes. And then some of you know I got into taste and wine. So this is the shape of taste sweet. It's rounded and it gives a more rounded experience in our mouth. And it tells our cells that it's an energy source. So there's lots of information embedded in the molecules. And this very prickly molecule says, watch out, this could be dangerous. This is a caffeine, and caffeine is bitter, and bitter molecules tend to be those that could be toxic. So again, the molecule is providing to our cells a warning. Go slowly with caution. So now I'm going to ask you to write down, I think. Well, Sean probably knows this because he's had a reading with me, but still, for all of you, write down your favorite one of these shapes. What's the favorite 1 and 2? Is it A is your favorite, B, C, or D? And you might even draw the shape to help you remember. And we'll see why that may be important. It's a little bit of my research in terms of understanding your intuitive knowing. And then we've got the same thing here with the pictures. These are the pictures of the molecules through the microscope. And take a moment to really look at these and see which one stands out to you, which one grabs your attention, a first choice and a second choice. So we've got numbers here. You can see 1, 2, 3, all the way down to 10, 11, and 12. And not a right or wrong, just write down what grabs you. So in thinking of the elements, one of the main uses of the elements in our history, universal history, is to describe creation, the creation myths. Many myths include we needed earth, water, air, and fire to create life. And also our molecules come from the stars. So we are star people, we're cosmic people. And I think it's useful to understand our elemental selves in terms of the cosmos. So that's part of what the class will include. When I started doing the photography of minerals through the microscope, I was not interested in that. It was the farthest thing from my mind because it was related to astrology, which was, in my way of thinking 40 years ago, that was woo-woo. And anyway, you will see what I discovered and why I'm finally brave enough in my elder years to really talk about that. So this is Taurus. It's an earth sign. It's the mineral for Taurus. This is Virgo, the mineral for Virgo. And the minerals, I don't talk about it in this session, but the minerals were used as basically way back when as homeopathic cell salts to help people get in balance, because the belief at the time around the 1800 was that the reason the body got out of balance was because of the mineral imbalance. And although that might have sounded strange, when we know biochemistry these days, the minerals do form part of the structure of the body, but the minerals, in the most part, are the catalysts in terms of helping the biochemistry of the cells work. So they really are important. If they're out of balance with the minerals, everything will be out of balance. But in terms of the cell salts, they were often, not in the beginning, but probably 100 years ago were used more in relationship to your astrological birthday. And then this mineral is is calcium phosphate. It makes bones, and it's Capricorn. It's an earth sign. So if you notice, these three earth sign minerals are all rounded, just like Mother Earth. And as I began teaching this, which is fairly recently, it's just the beginning of the year, these are the minerals through the microscope. These are the glyphs, astrological glyphs, and I began seeing a correspondence between the rounded shape and the glyphs, thinking that, oh, maybe technology has been able to discover what was known by the ancient people. And then I started looking at, well, what other symbolic forms look at the elements, and the tarot is one form that looks at the elements, and we could see these are different tarot decks that all look at the earth element as discs, pentacles, or worlds. They're all round. I didn't know any of this when I did the photography, so I like to think that I couldn't bias what I was doing. And so here again, we've got, this is another version of Taurus, building mountains. So the earth element is about being practical and solid and gathering up the material world. And I think this image looks very much like part of the earth. And when we're exploring this in the course, we look at the elements in terms of not just the minerals, not only astrology, but look at the place of the element in nature to keep us connected, to see that we are cosmic beings. And then the next element we look at is the air element. The air element is invisible. It's so different than the tangible earth. And these are the minerals with the air signs of the zodiac. This is Gemini, this is Libra, and this is Aquarius. And we see the three air signs all have square angular forms. And so become aware, I'm sure you all know your birth date, the sign you were born under. So see if the picture that you chose or the shape you chose is related to these images. And we'll talk about it a little bit later. So square air. And we look at, again, the glyphs for I didn't know this until I started teaching. The glyphs for the air elements are mostly have some angular aspect to it, a linear aspect. And the personality aspect of air people is they're more intellectual. They think, they've got a lot of thoughts, they want to communicate them. And air is invisible, we can't see it. We only can see its effect on other things. So this was a very windy day in China that I photographed last week. Last week. And we can see the effect of the air element on other things. We can't see air itself, which is interesting in terms of using this information in a symbolic way. And this just gives you a little bit of how the course gets built, looking at the element and its role in our bodies. The air is our breath. It's the gift of life. We look at it in terms of respiration, our lungs and relaxation. We also, air is attributed to the mind, how we think, our mental perspective. The elements, I look at the elements, as do many of the experts in the field, talk about the perspective, the window that you appreciate life through. If you've got a lot of the air element, you're more in the mental aspect, thinking about things and wanting to express it. If you're an earth person, you're more in the tangible world, the material world. You want to make things practical. And I've also begin to look at the elements in terms of the senses. And here we look at, think of when you breathe in, you're breathing in millions of molecules of smell, and look at how that, basically I bring all these things in together to see how can we cultivate and enhance our relationship with the elements. And we get into each element. I think I only put this up for the air element, a playbook. How can we use, if you have no air in your chart or you want to bring in more of the quality of that air, how do you bring it into your day? And we'll look at, one of the things we look at is the indigenous perspective in terms of the directions. The direction of the east is the air element. Go out in a windy day, use your senses, use smell, our imagination and different sound. So we've got a lot of different ways of bringing the element into reality beside the astrology. And then we move into the fire element. We don't have life without fire. Well, we don't have life without any of these. And the fire element is our spirit, is life itself. It's our energy. And these are the signs of the zodiac related to the fire element. Here we've got Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And these three fire elements, these two are very clearly hexagons. This one is a little iffy. If I had to do it over again, I would re-photograph this, but this is what showed up. And then when I looked, when I look at the universal symbols of this, with a tarot, one of the symbols, common symbol for the fire element is wands, regardless of what the deck is. And to me, this was definitely a wand. So it fit in that perspective. So how do we bring the fire element into our life? A simple gesture is, lighting a candle in the morning. And then we get into water, which we're in the water element right now. The sun is in Scorpio and the moon is in Pisces. And we'll see what water minerals look like. Water is always in movement. Water gave humans the first ability to reflect and see themselves. Mirrors, we didn't have mirrors millions of years ago. So we can see the reflection, and water is just symbolic of how do we reflect on life? How do we feel? What are our emotions? And a lot is hidden deep underneath. Well, here's the mineral for Cancer. It's fluid, it's flexible, it looks almost like flowing water, if you will. Here's Scorpio. Scorpio was the hardest to photograph, and there's a lot of hidden dimension in Scorpio. This was these were the two pictures of Scorpio I could gather. And if any of you know Scorpio people, we can be prickly. And the animal related to the Scorpio is the scorpion, the stinger. So this fit that image as well. And then this is Pisces. The mineral for Pisces is iron phosphate. And I do have other images of this one to make the iron soluble. As you can see here, it's almost not solid, but little bits of iron. So here are the three water signs. And water needs to be contained. If you start thinking about the elements in nature, water needs to be contained. It flows relentlessly if it's not contained. And it's also a very powerful force in its movement and in what goes on underneath. What can I say? This was actually a photograph my son took when he was in New Zealand. So this month, especially for the next couple of weeks, while the sun is in Scorpio, it's really useful to discover your relationship with the water element. And one of the things I do talk about in the course is to look, first of all, to look at your relationship with the sun, but then to look at your relationship with the moon. The moon changes its sign every two to 3 days. And you begin to gain an understanding of how your energy, how your personality, how your moods may change with the moon. So right now, the sun is in Scorpio and the moon is in Pisces just this evening. It will change tomorrow. And I always like to look at, well, it's a double water day, which I wrote in the email. It's a double water day. So what does that mean? It's really a good time to go deep inside and reflect on how you feel, what's going on in your life. It's, what's the shape of water? And just to start paying attention, because the more we pay attention, I think, the more empowered we are in our life. So some of this is, what's the meaning of these shapes as symbols? Fire, earth, air, and water. So we look at the shapes in certain terms related to sacred geometry, but also psychology, Carl Jung, what do they have to tell us? I know I'm trying to fit in a lot in 5 weeks, but I think, we will all have fun doing it. And the medicine wheel is something I've not included in earlier versions of the elements, but to look at in some indigenous practices, it's thought that we enter the medicine wheel at a certain place related to our birth, and we're traveling the medicine wheel through our life. And all of these elements are included in our life, but we have more emphasis depending on where we are in our cycle of life. So we'll also look at our birthdays. What does our birthday tell us in terms of our elemental nature? It's easy to know your sun sign. It's easy, you may know your moon sign, but those are just two of the planetary aspects to pay attention to. And when you look at your whole elemental signature, I think you gain a lot more information. So did anybody choose A as their favorite picture? Sean, did you?
No, I picked D. Yeah.
You picked which?
D.
D. I can write that down. Sean, D. Anybody pick B? Nobody? Anybody pick C? Oh. Maybe everybody's muted except Sean. Who picked D besides Sean? Okay, so after I get this off, we'll ask what people found. And you're a Cancer, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I think you
I
got
knew
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you got that before.
Yeah.
So here's our birth. Am I going right? No. Okay. So key to any of this is Eckhart Tolle says that awareness is the greatest agent for change. And I think the more we become aware of some of these subtle energies, the more useful it becomes. And here's an example of just the elements and their geometric glyphs. And then here are the pictures that you all had a choice of choosing. These are all the earth element. These are the air. This is water. And this is fire. This is today, as I just mentioned. And if you pay attention, and really become aware, you may become very aware that tomorrow your energy has changed significantly because the moon moves into Aries, the moon moves into a fire sign. So you might be more elevated. I may have more energy tomorrow. I might be wanting to run rather than sleep. And just examples of how I use this. When I do someone's chart, I will lay out the minerals related to this. There's rising sign, sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. I don't do the last three, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, because those are generational, not personal. These are considered more personal planets. So I will lay it out in the minerals. And then what I've discovered for myself is that it's easier to grok, to take in the symbolic information when I build what I call a signature. And I do the signature in both just the simple geometric forms as well as this. And so this, I would read this as, this is someone who's got a powerful fire energy, maybe too driven by it, but to really recognize that this is a fire person, no question. And what I also look at when I'm doing a reading, and we'll do little micro readings in the class, that this person has no earth. So what does that mean? Does the person lack practical aspects in their life? Or one of the things I'm learning, because I've only started doing readings about 2 years ago, is the older we are, and if we've done some of the inner work, the more likely you've integrated your elemental challenges. I'm calling what I used to call you're lacking earth. It's a challenge, it's a lesson. It's what you came in with, where you need to learn. And so this was, these are a good friend I did a reading for, and this was her reading that we just saw, and this is her husband's reading. And you see, they're very similar. I had the belief when I started doing this, that's one of the reasons I was doing this, is, are we attracted to people to fill in our missing element? Obviously, that they're married 40 years very happily, and they speak the same language, actually was what I'm learning, is if we have similar elemental signatures, we share the language of how we see life. If we have very dissimilar, if someone is a fire person married to a water person, this person say had a lot more water, it may be harder to understand. They just don't see life the way I do. And how do you break through the differences? I think it's really becomes easier to understand how we get along with people if we can appreciate rather than condemn our differences. And this was as another couple I've known for years who've been married for a long time. You see, they also have very similar signatures, except he doesn't have any air and she's got one bit of air. And what does that mean? Well, air is about using the mind and is also about being social. And he's new to our family and he had no air. And when I first met him, and for a long time, I thought he doesn't like us because he's so quiet. When in fact, when I saw the difference in their charts, like, okay, he's not social. That's not his way of being. His way of being is much more sensitive and intuitive. And which is actually, now that I really know him and this, it makes it easier for me to appreciate his willingness to be social with us, which may be a little bit more difficult than someone who's got a lot of air in their chart. So a number of years ago, actually 20 years ago, I had the idea of writing a book and worked with an amazing designer, symbolist, Neil Murray, who came up with doing the zodiac and putting the different minerals in the zodiac. And I've had a student who's now asked me to do the zodiac right, since this is upside down. Most zodiacs start with going Aries, Taurus, etc. this way. So I'll have to see if I can get Neil to redo this. So if you wanted to do your own chart and learn, and you didn't, and learn about your elements, you can go to a website called Astrodienst. And if you wanted to do it for other friends, you can easily get the horoscope and read which elements are associated with signs of the zodiac. So this is an example of a signature. Another example, seeing it as the minerals and as the what I'm calling the geometric glyphs. And I do this just because they're interesting examples. This was a person who lacked water, has no water, and she had no idea elementally, because not that many people talk about our elemental selves. And when I described to her the ideas around the water element and being open to emotions and sensitivity, it made her understand herself that she had really a hard time expressing emotion. She could feel it, but never really let it out. So I'll have to check in with her. We did this a couple of months ago to see is she feeling and expressing her emotions more easily. So we've got all of these minerals inside of us, whether we're using it as a cosmic signature or not. And I think it's really, for me, it's useful to think about, don't be lonely. This is a Rumi quote, do not feel lonely. We've got the entire universe inside ourselves. And so if you are interested in learning more, I'm starting a 5-week program next Tuesday where we get much more detail into the symbols and the temperaments, personalities, strengths and challenges, and how to explore relationships. And it will be 5 o'clock Pacific time. And if you sign up by the 10th, you save some money. And I'm also inviting people, although I know a few of you have already signed up, if you want to bring a friend and gift it to them without paying any additional money, feel free to do that, because it's always fun to have more people in the group to discuss what we're learning. And I'm going to stop share. And okay, so I'm curious about what shapes you picked. And unmute yourselves. So, Trish and Elizabeth. Trish, what was your favorite shape?
I didn't write it down very well. It was either 4 or 5.
Well, it was A, B, C, or D. Oh, so you're taking
my favorite shape was the circle.
And do you know your sun sign?
Yeah, Aquarius.
Okay, so
I'm looking to get a little grounding. That's all.
Uh-huh.
I'm just looking for a little grounding.
Well, that probably will tell you a lot too. I mean, I know that Angie Arian wrote a book on the 4 shapes, and are you familiar?
5 universal shapes.
Yeah.
Signs of life.
5 shapes, right. Okay, I'm thinking 4 because I'm in 4. And she will say what your work by basic, she wrote, depending on which shape you put in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 5th place, what you're working on. So that's another way to look at this. And another way, because I know you and Elizabeth are both art people and creative people, that I was thinking, oh, well, it might be useful to come out with an idea of drawing a mandala of your favorite shapes to get deeper in.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, when's your birthday?
I'm a Taurus sun and a Gemini moon.
And which shape did you pick? Just curiosity.
Water and fire for the shapes, but for the pictures, for the visuals, I picked air and earth. So those are my favorites for like what I am, and then for the shapes, it was the others that I.
Wow.
Interesting, interesting. So I know this may be something to not do when I haven't done a reading. So like when we do a reading, it tells us more because it's not, we're not just our sun and our moon and our rising sign. So yeah. So when we do a reading, we'll figure some of that out. So questions from all that I've covered.
I guess my question is, you know, what's the big deal about taking them, and what's the best way to get them? Like, I mean, is it you get them better in what kind of foods are the best?
Mm.
Oh, so you want to know where you can find these minerals in food.
Right.
Okay.
Would
So
it be your fruits and your vegetables that have all the colors? I mean, would it be that's the most?
I don't think it would be that simple. It's like looking at the minerals. The minerals have two parts. So you and I've had some discussion a little bit about the minerals in the body.
Right.
So the minerals, I mean, if we think about potassium, the mineral salts are made up of two parts. And so the minerals that are potassium salts, you get potassium in greens. Where else do you get potassium? Bananas. So it's looking.
But I mean, do you get minerals when you eat meat?
Of course.
When you get bread, obviously they're whatever the animal's made of, right?
You would get iron for sure in meat, but you get iron in other green plants. I mean, if we think about
Right.
So you're probably more aware of the foods, but that's an interesting. I've not gone into that depth with the minerals, but that's a good place to go. And as we talked, it's like looking at this from a cell salt perspective, because cell salts were really used as energy remedies in a way, and that's a whole other aspect to include in a bigger course. But
because they say on the charge you're deficient of the 3 salts after the month you're born, or the month you're born in plus the next 2 months. Those are the salts you should be most deficient in, right?
Right.
They do?
That's how you read the cell salt chart. And if you see the cell salt chart online, you're most deficient in the month you're born in plus the next 2 months. So those should be the salts you should take the most of if you're taking cell salt.
Wow.
And then the opposite of your sun sign. I read that it was also the opposite.
Okay. Yeah, and it's probably more than just the 3, but it has to do with the cycle of 12. And like when you're in gestation for 9 months, and you're getting the salts those 3 months, and then as soon as you're born, you need to get those 3. That's from Dr. Schussler and those guys. That's from these guys that found the cell salts. That's what they came up with. It's pretty cool.
You're taking us deeper into the micro level.
But I muscle test. Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're looking at the bigger.
Yeah. So you muscle test when you give it? You don't go by the birthday?
A lot of times I muscle test for what people need, yeah. So I'll muscle test them on 2 or 3 of them, have them take 2 or 3. They're super effective. They're actually more effective than a lot of the other things I use. They're actually the best thing that I use on people, actually. They get the best results, even over vitamins and minerals and herbs. And, well, herbs are really powerful. It just depends on what's going on. But salts are always great. So if you guys don't take them, you should just start taking them. They're awesome.
Okay, I'm going to go get some tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm telling you, definitely for like a jet lag.
Yeah.
Iron, you put, take number 4, Ferrum Phos.
Yep.
And a little 8, take the magnesium, and you're like, it'll take like a day. It'll go right away. It's pretty
Okay.
cool. Yeah.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what was really weird about the China trip, I came back last Friday. I left Beijing at 4 o'clock Friday afternoon. I had an 11-hour flight and arrived home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on November 1st. Both, it's like, it's
Now you have a time change too that messes you up.
yeah, it's like, okay, a 15-hour change and the day didn't change. I didn't lose a day, but I flew for 11 hours. It's, I think it's more mind-boggling than anything else, like bringing me back. I keep on saying I have to bring my molecules back to Earth. Rather than get up at 4 in the morning and at this time of day, it's like, whoa.
Right.
Although what I've discovered, which is a real gift, getting up at 4 in the morning and getting out of bed at 3 or 4 in the morning, I get a lot done by 7 in the morning. And I'm usually not a morning person, so it's been really interesting to see, okay, I'm getting a lot done. I usually, when I get up at 7 or 8 in the morning, I'm immediately online. I'm not doing that. So,
Right.
so it is a gift, yeah, and a challenge.
So don't take the salt. Stay there because you're getting more done. So,
Well, I don't like being so tired.
right. Well, yeah.
That's kind of a
Just go to
drag.
bed, Shannon.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good.
So other comments, questions? Was clear.
I mean, I had my chart done, so I know a lot of this.
Yeah. Well, you knew a lot before we did the chart, so yeah.
Like just a different aspect of it.
Yeah. But now you know more, and I know more. And I definitely, it's like when I started this, it was only related to astrology, and it's morphed into what's the relationship of these minerals to the body, not only psychology, and to take it
Well,
the next,
both.
yeah.
It's both really. I mean, when you read the books, you know, Schussler's books, and you read that, it's both. It's both mental and physical. The salts are for both. They talk just about, you know,
Exactly.
each salt has its own mental thing that it does.
Yeah, the salts are about, they're energetic materials more than solid material.
Yeah, well, I was telling you, does anyone else know about these salts? Anybody?
Anybody else know about the cell salts?
No. Yeah, what she's teaching, like these salts, this is what when you take the cell salts, like Highland cell salts or Moody's or whatever you take, you're taking these structures that she's showing you. You're actually taking the structure like that. And they have an intelligence to design and build your body. So without these cell salts, you couldn't have specific parts of your body. They wouldn't exist. Like when you take number 6, Cali-Phos, you take potassium phosphate, and then you take Nat Sol, so you take Aries and Taurus, and you mix them together, you make the gray matter of the brain.
Interesting.
And once the gray matter's formed, now you can have thoughts. And now thoughts can start to create things. And so the next one is Kali-Mur, right? Kali-Mur is Gemini.
Yeah.
And when you add Kali-Mur, when you add that third salt, you actually produce a filament, which you'll find in string theory. So you start to form filaments. And then when you add Calc-4, which is Cancer, which is my sign, now you turn that filament into a circle, into a corpuscle. And now you can start to build the human body. And so what they did is they cremated people, and the ashes that were left over were all these salts. It's interesting to understand. So when you're cremated, and the dust and the ashes is where you ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Those are the 12 cell salts. Those are the cell salts that you just showed us.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so as you add each salt in the zodiac, you start to be able to, you start building the human structure into a form. And if you're deficient, and that's why they say if you're deficient in one, if you're deficient, let's say in Libra, in that phos, your urinary tract system will be very weak because your urinary tract system is mostly made of nat phos. And you can do that with all the salts. Each salt has a specific part of the body that it constructs.
Right, right.
So when people are diseased of, let's say, the heart, they have heart disease, they're completely deficient in magnesium, they're completely deficient in ferrum, they're completely deficient in these salts. And you just start giving people these salts and their organs start getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Because the salts have to do with the regeneration of the body.
And the spirit. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Interesting.
Why do you say atmospheric? What do you mean?
So where do you get these cell salts?
You can get them at Whole Foods. You can get them at
Yeah, get them online.
yeah, online.
Or should I just eat my mother's ashes? Sorry.
That would hurt.
That would hurt.
That would hurt because I touched someone's ashes a couple of weeks ago and it cut my finger almost.
Really?
So the shards, you know, these sharp pieces that she's showing you, like the silica, and she's showing you nat myrrh. These are sharp things. They are crystals. They are actually they're crystals, and they form specific structures of the body. These crystals are forming your structure. Like silica, for example, holds your brain together. Your right and left hemispheres are held together by silica.
And
Without silica, you become undecisive. You can't make decisions. Nothing gets done. You can't hold thoughts. You know, silica is important to the brain. Critical. So yeah, so you can do that with any of the salts. And if you read the books, it just, you know, it explains all that stuff. So that's what I've been reading. That's why I know it all, because I just read a bunch of them. Plus, I was trying to heal people in my office, so I'm trying to help people with very critical problems. And, you know, I'm always looking for what's the best thing to take. Because really, when you want to heal somebody, you got to clean them out. You got to clean the kidneys. You got to clean the liver. You got to clean the gallbladder. And that's the only way you get people healthy, really. You can fake it and take medicine and things like that, but that doesn't clean a gallbladder, taking medicine.
Right.
And these salts go in there and start digging away and start reconstructing the body. There's a whole book on it. Explains how they do it. I've been doing it. It's awesome. I've been taking lots of them. Yeah.
When's your book coming out?
It's actually getting last edited right now. It's edited, right? It's getting edited as we speak for the final edit. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, if you guys want to regen anything, you just got to start taking the salts. You got to take a lot of them. You can't just take a little of them. Because in the books it says, hey, I take like 2 tablets twice a day. It's like, no way. I'm taking tens of tablets all day long. So regenerative. Very regenerative.
So it's really interesting when you're thinking of taking cell salts. There is not one molecule of the mineral in the cell salt. It's the energy that's in the cell salt, because they're what's considered 6x.
Yeah, but you looked at it at 30x, so yeah, there's a structure there, right?
Say that again?
You looked at it at a 30x, right? That's what those pictures are, 30x.
No, that 30x magnification.
Right.
But
magnification.
it was the pure salt, not as a 6x. So it was the pure minerals that I photographed.
Yeah, but yeah. So what you know how they make a 6x, right? They take the cell salt and then they dilute it down 10 times. Then they take that and they dilute that down 10 times, and they take that and they dilute. So they do that 6 times, and now it's 1,000,000 times smaller than it was when it started.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. There's not a molecule left in a cell salt. It's
wow. What is it? The cell salt.
It's the energy. It's the energy that they've put in a homeopathic remedy. It's energy, not the molecule. It's the energy of the molecule.
And it comes off as a color. But it's also a structure, right? It's a structure. Or no?
That's a discussion you and I should have that's going too much detail for the rest of the group, which I welcome having a discussion with you about this.
Sorry, guys.
No, I mean, I'm excited by what you know. I think it's really important. But, you know, the minerals that I photographed were as the pure mineral. The idea came from the cell salt story in astrology, but not, the photographs were not as cell salts because there wouldn't be, yeah.
Because you would
there
take that picture and you'd be diluting that down. So you have to dilute that down 6 times to then see it. But you said you probably couldn't even see it if you tried.
No, but you'd see the effect on the crystallization. It's
Yeah.
like we talked about Emoto stuff.
Right.
So it does affect how the lactose crystallizes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they're good. They're good things and they're easy to take. That's the thing. They're easy and
they're very easy. I will go and read my Schussler tonight and see what I diagnose myself with. But okay, we'll follow up on the usefulness of cell salts as part of this class or the extension of this. So before we say goodnight, any last questions, comments? Awarenesses, ahas? Okay, we're all clear on all of the beautiful pictures. I mean, it's amazing that these molecules are in us. We have that amount of beauty within us. And when we leave, this is what's left. When our spirit leaves, these molecules are also what's left. So we're beautiful inside and when we go at the ultimate leaving. The ultimate recycle, what's the ultimate recycle? So I really appreciate you guys being here tonight and exploring a little bit about the elements of life, and hope to see some of you next time in the class. And if you have any questions about the class or anything else, feel free to email me.
Okay.
And
Thank
many,
you.
many blessings. Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night. Good night.